So today we're going to be talking about the UFC's top 15 ranked middleweights, and we're going to be ranking them from who I think is least likely to who I think is most likely to beat the current champion, that is Dricus du Plessis. So let's start off with who I think is least likely. It is Roman Kopylov. Look, Roman Kopylov is kind of new to the rankings. He's obviously coming off that win over Chris Curtis where he caught him with that head kick. He's a very fun fighter to watch. He's a really good kickboxer, but there's just levels between him and Dricus du Plessis. I know DDP fights like he's fighting underwater sometimes, and everyone thought he was like so untechnical on the feet, but really he's probably one of the more technical guys on the feet. Plus the grappling advantage that DDP would have over Roman Kopylov, and we're yet to really see him in there with high elite guys, if we're being honest. Obviously getting a win over Chris Curtis is good, don't get me wrong. We have seen him in there with Anthony Hernandez as well. I believe that is a fight that he lost, so he gets submitted in that matchup. Roman Kopylov, he's an exciting fighter. I think how long the fight him and DDP would last for, I think it would be an entertaining one, some of their exchanges on the feet, but DDP is just levels above Roman Kopylov in my opinion. Moving on, we have got Michel Pereira. Again, another really exciting striker. Is dangerous with submissions as well. He can grapple a bit, but this guy has about 30 seconds max in him in a fight. He gasses out too quick. He is very hittable in my opinion. He is very explosive as well, but it's not like DDP's chinny, or we've seen him recently in his career anyway be hit, hurt and rocked. You know, we haven't seen that out of DDP recently, if we're being honest. Michel Pereira, I think he'd give DDP a tough first round. I think he would be dangerous. I think he might have some success. I would still favour DDP to take the first round off him, but again, the grappling advantage that DDP would have, and just the skill gap between him and Michel Pereira is just evident in my opinion. I think everyone would agree, but the factor that he is so explosive and dangerous early on, there's a chance he could catch DDP with like a fucking rolling thunder or whatever type of shit he throws, but I just don't see it happening. His cardio shit. I think DDP technically is a way better striker. DDP is a big puncher as well, and I just think he's more grappling sound than what Michel Pereira is, if that makes sense. Pereira is dangerous with submission threats, don't get me wrong, and he is strong as well, but I just think DDP is better everywhere than Pereira, and you could probably argue Kopylov should be put above Pereira, but his explosiveness and how much of a finisher the guy is why I have him above him. Moving on, we have got Bo Nickal. Look, Bo Nickal, people might have him in a 15. He's very, very unproven. There's no way he beats Dricus du Plessis right now. I'm just going to get that out there. Absolutely not. But we're yet to see how good DDP's grappling defense is. How good is this guy's wrestling defense? We're yet to know. We know Bo Nickal, even though we've seen Cody Brundage just fucking chuck him halfway across the cage when they fought at UFC 300. We know this guy's an accomplished American wrestler. The guy can wrestle, so that is something you have to factor in. We're kind of yet to see that element of Dricus du Plessis' game. But Bo Nickal went 3 rounds striking with Paul Craig. Yeah, 3 rounds striking with Paul Craig. Need I say more? Let's move on. Moving on up, we've got Marvin Vettori. Look, Marvin Vettori, again, I think him and DDP would be a fun matchup because I think DDP would absolutely fucking batter him. But this guy's unfinishable. This guy has got a granite chin. DDP won't even be able to put him away, but I think it would be a fun, like just a fun scrap, to be honest. I think they would get scrappy at points. Marvin Vettori's game is to come. He's always looking to fight, but again, DDP is just better everywhere than Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori isn't a big puncher either, so there's not that real threat from Marvin Vettori, if you know what I mean. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. What is Marvin Vettori's threat? Is it his cardio? Can he fight at the pace that DDP can fight at? Can he out-grapple Dricus? I'm going to say no to that one. Can he out-punch him? Again, no. Is he a better striker? No. I just don't see a path to victory for Marvin Vettori at all in there with Dricus du Plessis. Moving on up the list, we have got Paulo Costa. The Paulo Costa that fought Yoel Romero, him versus Dricus would be such a fun fight because Paulo Costa, he was a big puncher. Not like a one-shot knockout artist, but He would put a fucking beating on you. Nowadays, though, he's very inactive. He's very tentative. Is that the right word to say? Obviously, Marvin Vettori did beat Paulo Costa, so you might think, why is Costa above him? I just think Costa would have a better chance against someone like Dricus. I think Paulo Costa on the feet is a lot more technical than what Marvin Vettori is. And we have to remember, Paulo Costa kind of fucked about for that Marvin Vettori fight. I think they ended up fighting a light heavyweight because Costa wouldn't cut weight. It was a weird time in Paulo Costa's career. Sean Strickland did beat Paulo Costa. That was Costa's last fight. Strickland comfortably won that, in my opinion. For some reason, the scorecards were a lot closer than what the fight actually was itself. But Costa's been in there with a lot of elite guys. He's proven. And I don't know, maybe if he could muster up the guy that fought Yoel Romero, we could be in for an exciting matchup between him versus Dricus. But again, I just think Dricus on the feet would just be too technical for Paulo Costa. I think Dricus would beat him up on the feet. Moving on, Renan de Ridder. Look, this guy is fairly new to the UFC. Obviously coming off wins over Gerald Meerschaert, and he's coming off a win over Kevin Holland at UFC 311. He obviously is very experienced in the world of MMA, what he done over in one championship. But one championship, the level of competition is very, very different over there than what you see in the UFC. Renan de Ridder's grappling's really good as well, and he has a submission threat. I think he kind of fights a bit goofy on the feet as well. I have him above Paulo Costa just because his skill set, the grappling threat. I do need to see more from Renan de Ridder. Like, there could be an argument this guy could be higher on the list, possibly, or there could be an argument that Bo Nichols should be higher on this list, because these guys are going to be fighting each other very soon. UFC Fight Night Iowa, I think that fight night's actually pretty stacked. But yeah, I've got Renan de Ridder here. Just need to see a bit more from him, to be honest. Moving on up, we've got Anthony Hernandez. Look, a lot of people probably had this guy higher. He's like everyone's dark horse of the division. Obviously coming off a win over Brendan Allen. The guy's on a bit of a good win streak as well. Beat Brendan Allen, Michel Pereira. I'm pretty sure he beat Edmund Shabazian as well, and he beat Roman Kopylov. The guy is on a win, a good win streak. But I just think Dricus would be too big for him, too strong for him on the feet. I think Dricus would be too much for him. There's a hole in Anthony Hernandez's game, and that's body shots. The guy does not deal well with body work whatsoever. Dricus du Plessis and his team, they do game plan well for fights, in my opinion. And I think that would be a strategy that they would expose in Anthony Hernandez's game. And just being blunt and honest, I think Dricus du Plessis would beat the living fuck out of Anthony Hernandez in there. I really do. I think he would stop him inside 3 rounds. Anthony Hernandez is good, don't get me wrong. But I think Dricus is just too big for him, too powerful for him. And there is that hole in his game that I think he would be exposed for by Dricus on the feet. Moving on up, we've got Jared Cannonier. Now, people will say, why is this guy so high up? Obviously, he's coming off a win over Gregory Rodriguez. He took a lot of damage in that fight, but he's coming off losses to Kyle Baralho and Imavov. The Imavov one was a bit of an early stoppage. The Baralho one, some could argue, was a late stoppage. He didn't even get stopped. I don't know how he survived that against Baralho. But Jared Cannonier's got good takedown defense. On the feet, he's very technical. He's not he's not the biggest puncher. I think people have that misconception of him, but he can crack. At this stage of his career, I don't think he would beat Dricus. I think he would lose. But I like his striking style. He's very technical. He's very composed in there as well. He can when he gets hurt, he can recover well. He takes shots well. I think Jared Cannonier, even though the guy is 41 years of age, I think he is still very underrated in the UFC's middleweight division. I don't think he'll break the top 5 again. I don't think he'll ever be champion. But I like his striking style. I think he's very technical. And does DDP stop him? The guy's hard to stop. Like, I would say Dricus probably beats him by a one-sided decision, to be honest. Just because of what we've seen, the shots Gregory Rodriguez hit him with, the fact he was able to recover from that Baralho incident. The Imavov one, yes, he got hurt and caught and hurt. Yes, he got hurt, caught, hurt. What the fuck am I saying? Yes, he got caught and hurt in that matchup. But you could see he was recovering. Like, he wasn't out, if you know what I mean. He wasn't out. But again, I like his striking. I think he's technical. He's got good takedown defense as well. Can fight well out of the southpaw and orthodox stance. So you give Dricus du Plessis some different looks in there. I think this is a perfect place for Jared Cannonier. Moving on up, we've got Brendan Allen. Obviously, Brendan Allen is coming off a loss to Anthony Hernandez, so you might say, why is he here and Anthony Hernandez is that low down? Styles make fights. I know it's cliche to say, but Brendan Allen's got good boxing in my opinion. He has a submission threat, he has a grappling threat, although he chooses submission over position all the time, and that's also what cost him in the Anthony Hernandez matchup. This guy is constantly hunting for submission, and when he gets it, great, but there's a lot of times in Brendan Allen's matchups that you see he's hunting these submissions that give away the good positional control that he has, and it just fucks up everything going for him in the fight. So I think that is a bit of an IQ problem, if you want to call it that, for Brendan Allen. But I like his boxing. I think Dricus beats him. This would just be plot armor versus plot armor, to be honest. This would be a fun scrap. But I think Brendan Allen actually is good, to be honest. I think he's better than what we've seen in that Anthony Hernandez matchup, to be honest. Again, it's just the same old thing with Brendan Allen. Submission over position, and it does cost him against these higher ranked opponents. Moving on, we have got Roman Dolidze. This might be extremely high for Roman Dolidze. I understand that. I think the guy's I don't want to say he's really technical, but I think his striking's pretty decent. His ground game's pretty good as well. Is he the most entertaining fighter to watch? No. He went all 5 rounds with Nasruddin Imavov, which is something to take into account. Obviously, he fought Marvin Vettori, close enough fight, kind of. No, their first fight was close. Their second fight wasn't close. Dolidze clearly won that matchup there against Marvin Vettori. I think Roman Dolidze is pretty underrated, to be honest. I don't think he's as dog shit as what people make him out to be. And I have him here just because I don't think he beats Dricus. Again, there's only 2 people that I think, there's 3, we'll get to them later on the list, that I think can, and one that would beat Dricus. But I don't think Roman Dolidze is as dog shit as people make him out to be. I think he deserves to be here on this list, this high up. Moving on, Kyle Boralho. People might have this guy higher. I need to see more. Obviously, coming off that win against Jared Cannonier, he looked good in there. But before that, he beat Paul Craig and Abbas Magomedov. So, not real world beaters that he's coming off beating. I do think this guy has the skill. I think this guy's very well rounded. He's a big puncher, great grappling. I just need to see more of him at this elite level. Might be one of the worst tattoos I've ever seen, to be honest. Moving on, Robert Whittaker. This might be controversial. Some people might say Whittaker needs to be way low down. I don't think Whittaker is as washed as people make him out to be. Obviously, he got finished by Dricus du Plessis, and when DDP got the win over Whittaker, in my opinion, that's one of the biggest upsets in UFC history, in my opinion. DDP was such a massive underdog going in there, and he stopped Robert Whittaker, looked good in there. I think Robert Whittaker is still up there with some of the elites in this middleweight division. I think this guy has got a lot more to give. I think it's hard to say he would beat DDP next time round because he did get stopped by him pretty comfortably, if we're being honest, but I like Whittaker striking. I think he's got good grappling, offensively and defensively. Obviously, people might question his defense grappling because of what happened with Hamzat Chimaev at UFC 308. I still believe in Robert Whittaker. The chin is in question, yes. I don't think he would beat Dricus du Plessis, but I think he's got the tools to beat Dricus du Plessis, if that makes sense. Moving on up the list, we have got Sean Strickland. Look, Sean Strickland arguably beat him first time round, so people might argue with who I have above him. He got completely shut out in their second fight there, wasn't even close. He got dominated for every single round. I think I scored that fight 4-1 if I remember correctly, and that was me being very generous towards Sean Strickland, giving him that round. Yes, he was very, very competitive with DDP in the first fight. The second fight, though, we just seen what happens when you don't adapt your style. And that is Sean Strickland. He fights the same way every single fight. It doesn't change. And Dricus du Plessis was able to use that information and the data that he collected from his matchup with him at UFC 297 to then implement a very, very successful game plan. Second time round. Third time round, I don't think it would be any different. That's why I've got Sean Strickland here. Moving on, we've got Israel Adesanya.
But what the hell?
Now, Israel Adesanya, people might be saying, how can you have Izzy above Sean Strickland? The reason being, Adesanya, before he got submitted, was beaten Dricus du Plessis. And I think Israel Adesanya... Should Strickland be above him now? I'm thinking of it, actually. Is this a bit stupid, having Adesanya above him? No, I'm still going for it because Adesanya looked really good in their matchup. Obviously, the grappling thing was a bit of a problem for Adesanya, but even in the grappling exchanges, Adesanya was doing things right in terms of building to a base against the cage and trying to get back up. Dricus du Plessis was able to use that against him though, because as soon as Adesanya stuck the leg up to try and build his base, that's when DDP was able to get the hooks in. Adesanya technically was doing what he should have been doing to get back to his feet. Just Dricus du Plessis was able to use that against him. But Israel Adesanya on the feet was beating up Dricus du Plessis. Not badly or anything. They were competitive rounds on the feet, but Israel Adesanya going into, let me see, I can't remember what round he finished at him. Yeah, after round 3, I remember thinking Adesanya's going to beat Dricus du Plessis by decision here, because that's how good Adesanya was looking in that matchup. That's why I have Adesanya this high up. In at number 2, I've got Nassourdine Imavov, obviously coming off a big win over Israel Adesanya, knocking him out in the second round. This guy's on a crazy win streak. You've got Adesanya, Brendan Allen, Cannonier, Roman Dolidze. Nassourdine Imavov does not get the respect that he deserves. He's got good grappling. He is a good striker as well. He's very, very powerful on the feet. I think him against Dricus is like 70-30, to be honest. I would favour Dricus. The main reason why I would favour Dricus is I'm not too sure how confident I am in Nassourdine Imavov's actual gas tank. We did see him significantly slow down in there against Brendan Allen, but this guy is dangerous and doesn't get spoken about enough, doesn't get the respect he deserves. Obviously, he did lose to Sean Strickland, yes, but has made major improvements in his game since then, is on a massive win streak, very well rounded in my opinion. I would have that 70-30 in favour of DDP, but this guy is one to watch in this division. And finally, the guy who's going to beat Dricus, unfortunately, it is Khamzat Chimaev. Look, I think this guy's grappling is just going to be too much for Dricus. I think he's going to overwhelm Dricus du Plessis early on. I think he is probably going to submit Dricus du Plessis early on inside 2 rounds. I would love to see Dricus get the job done here, and I think he can. I think if he's able to make it out of those hard, grueling first 2 rounds with Khamzat, I think the fight is there for the taking with Dricus. But if you're going to pick DDP to beat Khamzat, you are relying on him being able to make it out of those early rounds against Khamzat. And like I said, we don't know how good Dricus du Plessis' defensive wrestling actually is, so it is really hard for me to comment on that. And we know how dominant Khamzat Chimaev is in the grappling, especially early on. So yeah, those are my rankings. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. What division do you want to see me do next? And as always, thanks for the support. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And I'll see you again in the next one.